The file begins. The digital guillotine fell in December 2024. A phantom empire valued at nearly $500 million evaporated in hours. The SHAWK token, a fleeting promise on the Solana blockchain, became a monument to ruin. A financial grave. The anatomy padednia was swift, brutal. Accusations, sharp as broken glass, cut through the digital air. Rug pull, they whispered. Then they screamed. A class action lawsuit, a thick dossier of collective despair, began to form against the architects of this digital heist. Haliey Welch, the face of a virality that once felt like gold, found herself at the epicenter of this seismic shift. Her name, once synonymous with a fleeting internet meme, now carried the cold weight of a public betrayal. She offered words, a public apology in that same December, promising assistance, vowing to uncover the truth. A commitment etched not in stone, but in the volatile ether of a collapsing market. It was a desperate attempt to clean the digital dirt from her hands, a futile gesture perhaps. The scale of the disaster dwarfed any individual plea. The worst, however, was yet to be catalogued. The aftershocks of the crash fractured her public image. Her claims, whispered into the void of public outrage, were met with the cold skepticism of the betrayed. She maintained, with unwavering consistency throughout 2025, that her profit from the memecoin was a modest marketing fee, a pittance compared to the fortunes lost. It was her biggest mistake, she confided in a leaked interview in February of 2025, an admission of ignorance regarding the intricate mechanics of cryptocurrency. Yet, the public narrative, fueled by the stark reality of lost savings, demanded an inventory of sins. The ghost of a $500 million collapse clung to her name. The glamour of her initial viral fame, once a beacon of effortless success, now contrasted sharply with the squalor of her legal entanglements. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, then the FBI, approached her. She revealed this in May of 2025. The SEC, after its review, closed its file without charges against her personally, a brief reprieve, a momentary easing of the pressure. But the shadow of the market's curse proved long. By November of 2025, she was added to another lawsuit, plaintiffs alleging she was a critical component. The digital ground shifted again, reaffirming the grim truth. Even in the meat grinder of fame, some debts are never truly settled. Some debts are never truly settled. Pause long before the digital grave of SHAWK, before the class action filings and the quiet inquiries of federal agents, there was a different kind of currency, raw, unadulterated, viral fame. Her name, Haliey Welch, became synonymous with a fleeting moment of internet notoriety, a phrase, a laugh, echoing across screens. It was the kind of sudden, unearned spotlight that blinds as much as it illuminates, attracting fortunes and vultures with equal measure. This initial explosive recognition, born of pure chance, laid the concrete foundation for an empire of influence, however brittle. It was a golden ticket, not to a factory, but to a vast, uncharted digital ocean where the currents of speculation ran wild. The transition from ephemeral meme to tangible asset was swift, almost inevitable. The architects of this digital mirage saw in her persona not just a face, but a vessel, capable of carrying the dreams of quick wealth to an eager, unsuspecting audience. Her ventures, fueled by the intoxicating promise of effortless riches, grew with the speed of a wildfire. Yet, within this rapid ascent, perhaps the most fatal error was already cast. The belief that charisma alone could navigate the treacherous waters of market manipulation. The scent of fresh paper money, mixed with the stale fear of irrelevance, propelled her deeper into a world where trust was a commodity, easily bought and even more easily shattered. Shattered trust. The commodity, once so easily bought, now lay in fragments. Her influence, however, was not built on financial acumen, but on a more primal connection, the illusion of accessibility. She was not a distant figure. She was the Hawk Tuah Girl, the relatable phenomenon. This cultivated proximity, a digital hand extended across the void, became the gravitational force that pulled thousands into the orbit of Hawk. The initial promises were simple, seductive. A chance for the common man to participate in the next great digital gold rush. A path to generational wealth, paved with clicks and collective belief. The narrative spun was one of community, of shared destiny, where early adopters would reap unimaginable rewards. It was a siren song, amplified by the relentless hum of social media, promising liberation from the mundane. The perceived opportunities were boundless, painted in the vibrant hues of rapid gains and instant fortunes. The market responded with a feverish appetite. Wallets swelled. Screens flickered with impossible numbers. The value, once a mere whisper, began its ascent, gathering momentum, doubling, quadrupling, then multiplying beyond conventional comprehension. This was not just a token. It was a phenomenon, a testament to the power of collective delusion, built on the fragile architecture of hype. Pause. A dizzying climb towards an inevitable, brutal fall. The fall was not a gentle descent. It was a plunge, a digital suicide. The screen, once a beacon of fortune, turned cold, displaying only the stark arithmetic of loss. Billions reduced to dust. The collective gasp of 1,000 shattered dreams. Pause. Then came the silence. It was into this void that the first legal filings began to seep, not as whispers, but as a low, persistent hum of indignation. A class action lawsuit, a collective cry from the digital graveyard, naming the architects of this particular ruin. The claims were simple, brutal, a deliberate deception, a calculated rug pull designed to extract capital from the hopeful and the naive. They spoke of misleading promotions, of trust abused, of an empire built on the fragile architecture of hype, then deliberately dismantled. Haliey Welch, a figure once synonymous with the coin's meteoric rise, found herself at the epicenter of this storm. Her initial response was a carefully worded apology, a public declaration of regret, a commitment to assist affected investors. A performance, perhaps, designed to stem the bleed, to paint her as victim rather than perpetrator. But the concrete reality of lost savings, of mortgage futures, offered little room for nuance. The cracks in the gilded facade were now undeniable, spreading like fault lines across the digital landscape. The unease, once a subtle undercurrent, became a palpable dread. The shadow of Paw's collective ruin stretched long. The official narrative, carefully curated, spoke of ignorance. Haliey Welch, in leaked interviews, claimed a modest marketing fee, a biggest mistake, a profound misunderstanding of the digital wilderness she had helped populate. Her words were a shield, designed to deflect the growing accusations. But the mechanisms of justice, slow and unyielding, had begun their grinding work. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, along with the FBI, turned their gaze towards the wreckage. Their inquiries, confirmed by Welch herself in May 2025, lent a chilling gravitas to the affair. Yet, the official conclusion from the SEC, months later, offered no immediate public indictment against her personally. A temporary reprieve, a whisper of innocence in the storm. But the silence was deceptive. The digital breadcrumbs, the financial trails, the metadata of influence, these were not so easily erased. Forensic auditors, unseen, followed the scent of money, meticulously reconstructing the anatomy of the collapse. And then, in November 2025, a new filing. An amendment to the existing class action, now unequivocally naming Haliey Welch not as a peripheral figure, but as a critical component of the promotional apparatus. The evidence presented quietly within the legal texts suggested her involvement was far deeper than a mere paid endorsement. It was an inventory of sins, carefully compiled, suggesting a deliberate orchestration, a knowing participation in the grand deception. The shadow of the bunker began to loom. The shadow of the bunker began to loom. The November 2025 filing, positioning Haliey Welch as a critical component, shifted the narrative from mere promotion to something far more intricate. It was an anatomy of a digital collapse, dissected under the cold light of legal scrutiny. The question then became stark. Was she an unwitting pawn, caught in the undertow of a speculative frenzy, or an architect of its demise? Her public defense remained consistent: a modest marketing fee, a naive understanding of blockchain mechanics, a victim of her own trust. This narrative painted her as a figurehead, her charisma leveraged by unseen hands. The leaked interview from February 2025 echoed this, her voice tinged with regret, claiming the promotion was her biggest mistake. The SEC's initial decision not to pursue charges against her personally lent a brief, fragile credibility to this version of events. It was the story of a starlet, blinded by the spotlight, stumbling into a financial quagmire. But the counter-narrative, whispered first in forums and then shouted in court documents, presented a colder calculus. Forensic analysis of the Hawk token's launch revealed mechanisms that spoke not of accident, but of design. The rapid allocation of a significant percentage of tokens to private wallets prior to public listing. The strategic timing of liquidity pool additions, creating artificial scarcity and driving initial price surges. The sudden coordinated sell-off that drained the pool, leaving retail investors holding valueless digital dust. These were not the hallmarks of an accidental collapse. This was the precise, brutal efficiency of a rug pull. The class action lawsuit contended that Welch's persistent and highly visible endorsements, her cultivated persona of authenticity, were not merely a marketing fee. They were the essential lubricant for the entire operation. Her face, her voice, her perceived trustworthiness, these were the assets that lured in the unsuspecting. The legal argument posited that her lack of understanding was either a deliberate feint or a culpable negligence, given the scale of her influence. The evidence, carefully compiled from blockchain transactions and promotional timelines, suggested a knowing participation, a calculated orchestration. The digital grave, they argued, was dug with her shovel. The mechanisms of the crash, however, clinical, bled into human lives. The court filings, cold and dispassionate, could only hint at the inventory of sins, the true cost of the Hawk implosion. To understand the depth of the wound, one had to hear the voices from the wreckage. I put my son's college fund into it, a voice digitally altered for anonymity recounts. She said it was the future. She looked so genuine. Now it's gone. All of it. We trusted her, and she just watched it burn. The anger, thick and palpable, is a testament to the shattered trust, the bitter taste of betrayal. It was not just money lost, it was a future meticulously planned that evaporated in a digital puff. A former junior developer who requested his identity be shielded behind a veil of static offered a glimpse behind the curtain. It was fast, too fast. Corners were cut. When we raised concerns about the tokenomics, the stability, we were told to focus on the hype. The goal wasn't a sustainable project, it was momentum. And when Haliey came on board, that momentum became a tidal wave. We knew deep down it couldn't last. But who were we to say no to the machine? His words paint a picture of a project driven by greed, fueled by the intoxicating promise of quick wealth, with little regard for the inevitable crash. Legal experts navigating the murky waters of digital finance spoke of the complexity. Proving intent in these cases is a labyrinth. One attorney explained, her voice sharp and precise. The digital footprints are there, yes. But establishing that a promoter, however influential, fully understood the fraudulent nature or actively participated in the manipulation beyond mere endorsement requires a smoking gun. And crypto, by design, leaves few. The legal battle therefore became a contest of interpretations of what constituted knowing and doing in a landscape still largely beyond traditional regulation. An individual once part of Welch's inner circle offered a perspective tinged with a weary sorrow. She wasn't evil, not truly. She was ambitious. She loved the attention, the adoration. And she was surrounded by people who told her she could do no wrong. They fed her ego, told her she was a genius. When the money started rolling in, it was easy to ignore the red flags. She got caught in the meat grinder of fame, yes, but she also turned the handle. The statement hangs in the air, a final chilling assessment of a legacy now forever intertwined with the debris of a broken promise. The statement hangs in the air, a final chilling assessment of a legacy now forever intertwined with the debris of a broken promise. Beyond the courtroom dramas and the digital gallows, a different kind of decay had set in. The spotlight, once a warm embrace, became an interrogation lamp, stripping away not just reputation, but the very fabric of self. Haliey Welch, the girl who once commanded millions with a phrase, found herself in a gilded cage of her own making. The echo of past adoration was a constant torment, a reminder of what was lost. Pause. The silence after the applause, it was deafening. Her world, built on fleeting attention, crumbled into a profound isolation. Former allies vanished like mist in the morning sun. The phone calls stopped. The invitations ceased. She was a pariah, not just to the public, but to those who had once fed from her reflected glory. The lavish parties became solitary evenings. The bustling sets, a quiet apartment. This was the true price of the fall, an inventory of vanished smiles and hollow promises. It was the anatomy of a soul slowly consumed by its own reflection in a shattered mirror. The glamour had been a thin veneer. Beneath it, the concrete reality of consequences began to set in. Pause. A profound loneliness. Her reemergence, a calculated maneuver in the aftermath, spoke volumes. The podcast, the cameo, even the pivot to adult content, each step was an attempt to rebuild on shifting sands, to reclaim a narrative that had been irrevocably stained. But the shadow of the SHAWK lingered. The fatal mistake was not merely a misjudgment of character or a lack of financial acumen. It was the fundamental misunderstanding of the digital market itself, a wild, untamed frontier where fortunes are made and lost in the blink of an eye, and accountability is a concept often outpaced by innovation. It is a meat grinder of fame, yes, but also a digital graveyard where reputations are buried under mountains of code and broken trust. Haliey Welch became a testament to this volatile ecosystem. Her story, a bitter testament to the allure of easy money and the inherent risks of a world without anchors. The legacy? Not one of entrepreneurial spirit or media savvy, but a cautionary tale etched in the blockchain. An inventory of greed, naivete, and the merciless nature of public perception. Pause, the bitter testament of a tarnished name. Her final offering, a stark reminder that even billions cannot purchase an unsullied past. Only the cold, hard truth remains. An epitaph carved not in stone, but in the indelible ledger of the internet. The silence now, it is absolute.